You know, for centuries, when we thought about the ancient world, we pictured these vast, empty spaces. You'd see a few famous cities on a map, like Rome or Athens, and just assume the rest was wilderness. We imagined humanity kind of clustered in these tiny, isolated pockets. But what if that whole picture we've had in our heads is just wrong? What if the land was never empty, and we were just looking at it with the wrong eyes?
So let's just ask the big question right up front, the one that's kind of shaped our view of history for generations. We've always worked under this assumption that, pre-modern populations were pretty small and their footprint was light. It makes sense, right? It seems logical.
Well, it turns out that assumption wasn't just a little bit off. It might be one of the biggest misconceptions in modern history. The whole story we told ourselves about a sparse, empty past wasn't just incomplete, it was fundamentally flawed. And the reason for this massive blind spot, it really comes down to one powerful, simple idea.
And here it is. It's called visibility bias. For decades, archaeology was basically a science of what was easy to find. I mean, think about it. The pyramids out in the desert, the Parthenon sitting up on a hill. We built our entire model of ancient civilizations on stone structures that just happened to survive in dry, open places. We made this huge mistake of confusing an absence of visible evidence with an absence of people. And in doing that, we missed most of the story.
So if all these people were there, where did all the evidence go? Well, it turns out nature is an expert at hiding things. It's like an incredibly effective editor of the historical record. And depending on the environment, it uses different tools to systematically wipe the slate clean, hiding entire civilizations right under our noses. Okay, so you can really break this down into three main ways that nature censors history. In rainforests, history gets hidden vertically. In deserts, it's buried horizontally. And along our ancient coastlines, well, it's often erased completely. Let's take a quick look at how each one actually works.
First up, the jungle. For years, a lot of experts argued that places like the Amazon were a counterfeit paradise, that they were just too difficult, too poor in resources to support large populations. But the jungle wasn't a barrier to civilization, it was just a barrier to our view. The dense canopy acts like this giant green blanket, hiding cities from above. And down in the ground, the vegetation grows so fast it can literally swallow a pyramid in just a few centuries. The history isn't gone, it's just buried under layers and layers of life.
Now deserts, they work differently. They erase things horizontally. Shifting sand dunes move like these slow-motion waves, burying settlements, roads, even whole river systems. And this is where it gets crazy. Using satellite radar, scientists found a massive, 500-kilometer-long ancient river network hidden beneath the sands of the Sahara. A place we thought of as eternally barren was, not that long ago, a vibrant green landscape that could have supported huge communities.
But the most complete erasure of all? That happens under the waves. Get this, during the last ice age, sea levels were over 400 feet lower than they are today. That means these huge, fertile coastal plains where people thrived for millennia are now just gone. They're completely underwater. But here's the amazing paradox. While the oceans erase these places from our maps, the low oxygen environment of the seabed can also preserve them almost perfectly. So submerged sites, like Thonis Heracleion in Egypt, become these incredible time capsules of a lost world.
So, if history has been so systematically hidden by jungles and deserts and oceans, how are we suddenly finding it all? The answer is pretty simple. We've basically developed technological superpowers. We've invented new ways of seeing that can peel back the layers of nature and let us look directly into the past.
For every one of nature's tricks, we've now got a countermove. To beat the vertical erasure of the jungle, we use LiDAR, which shoots laser pulses to map the ground right through the canopy. For the horizontal erasure in the desert, satellite radar can actually see through sand to find buried rivers. And to deal with total erasure by the oceans, we use sonar and ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, to map the seafloor in incredible detail.
And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote just says it all. Technologies like LiDAR haven't just helped archaeologists. They've completely changed the game. It's a revolution. They've changed what even counts as evidence, letting us map entire ancient cities in a few days, work that would have taken decades, maybe even centuries to do by hacking through the jungle on foot.
And the result of this tech revolution? It's staggering. It is forcing us to completely redraw the map of the ancient world, and maybe most importantly, to radically, and I mean radically, rethink our estimates of how many people were actually living on this planet.
Okay, let's take one of the most dramatic examples out there, the Maya civilization. For decades, we walked through the jungle. We counted the ruins we could see with our own eyes, and we made our best guess about their population. But
What happened when we pointed LiDAR at that exact same jungle?
The number is it's almost hard to believe. For decades, the best estimates put the peak Maya population at around 11 million. But the new data from LiDAR suggests it could be as high as 16 million people. That's not a small correction. That is a fundamental rewriting of an entire civilization's scale. And hey, even the experts who did the work were shocked. Francisco Estradabelli, the lead researcher, basically says it right here. They were expecting a little bump, but a 45% jump in the population estimate for one of the world's great ancient civilizations, that's a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about their society, their farming, their power, everything.
I mean, this chart just lays it all out. It's like a historical earthquake visualized. That gap between the old estimate and the new one, that's not just a number on a page. That's 5 million people. It represents thousands of homes, canals, farms, and roads that were completely invisible to us until now. It reveals a civilization that was way more dense, complex, and connected than we ever dared to imagine.
So, this is the big question, right? What does all this mean for the grand story of humanity? If the jungles weren't empty, and the deserts weren't empty, and the ancient coastlines weren't empty, what does that change?
Well, it changes the entire paradigm. The old view was a world of empty lands, with a few isolated city-states here and there. The new view is one of saturated landscapes. Landscapes full of people and deeply interconnected networks. We've gone from seeing ancient people as passive inhabitants just living in a wild world, to understanding them as active ecological engineers who shaped their environments on a massive scale.
So this leaves us with a few huge takeaways. First, the ancient world was way more crowded and complex than we thought. Second, humans have been masters of landscape engineering for thousands of years, creating things like super fertile soils called terra preta in the Amazon. And maybe the most profound takeaway of all, this idea of a pristine wilderness, a world untouched by humans, it's largely a myth. We weren't just living in nature, we were actively shaping it.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The illusion of empty land was never really about the past. It was always about the limits of our own perception. History isn't some fixed story written in stone. It's more like a deep ocean of data, and we are only now, right now, building the tools powerful enough to explore its true depths. The world was never empty. It was always full, just teeming with stories, waiting for us to finally be able to see